Bucks beat the Bulls, but we hear from Giannis. He speaks to Jim Owczarski before the game. Does he reaffirm there is no trade coming? Camille and I analyze what he had to say coming up next on Locked On Bucks.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Bucks. I am Justin Garcia, joined as always by Camille Davis. We thank you for making this your first listen of the day, each and every day, and for helping us make the Locked On Network the number one sports podcasting network in the industry. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It is the last call for football on FanDuel. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. You can hear me every single night on the Bucks Radio Network. You can find Camille weekly as part of our Locked On NBA coverage and the Technical Foul podcast as well. And Camille, yesterday on the way to the arena, it was I don't even know how to put it, of a weird feeling of like, what are we about to walk into here? And it was funny because the Bulls crew arrived and they, of course, wanted to talk about the latest. Have you heard that Giannis could be traded potentially? Like, that's all they wanted to talk about. And they were like, well, we're hearing it's wide open. Like, even the Bulls have been linked, and he apparently bought an apartment in Chicago. Or you guys, the debate started to like, what would we give up? And what about this? Is that too much? The guys, I don't think you have to worry about it. Anyway, but I saw Jim Owczarski after the coaches were done. And it was interesting because usually in those pregame settings so Doc Rivers will speak first, and then 15 minutes after Doc is scheduled is when the road coach talks. Most of the time, I'm in there sitting next to Eric for the road coach or near him, and we'll catch up. Neither Eric nor Jim went in to hear Billy Donovan talk. So it's not out of the norm here, but okay, this is kind of interesting. There's no one in here. It's Bulls people. It's me, Dave, Lisa Byington, our guy Monis, and a few others. Like, okay. Mm-hmm. And then as we're walking out, I see Jim just kind of hovering around the court, and we catch up briefly. And I forget how it was put exactly, but he basically told me something's coming. Of like, just wait, like nothing's been said yet, but hang on, give it some time. Like, okay, that's interesting. And then it was third or fourth quarter that this story breaks and is thrown out there, and then we're scrambling to like, all right, I gotta see this, but we're playing a game that we're calling, so I'm gonna have to read this during breaks and down periods. But I was able to catch up with that piece shortly after the game had concluded. And I had some takeaways. Now, we will touch on some of the things that happened in this game itself, but this is obviously the bigger story. I did have a couple of key takeaways, but I am curious for you to be able to experience that in real time and see the framing of Giannis has spoken and the headline that comes out of it that Giannis wants to retire a Buck and never wants to play for another team. How accurate do you find that to be? And what did you take away from this piece?
I think it's 100% accurate. I think if Giannis could have his dream scenario, he would retire a Buck. Like, I have never.
What if I told you he can?
It's the caveat, because it's like retire as a Buck, but had a chance to win the entire time throughout. Like, that's the thing. Like, I've seen some people saying like this article didn't say anything new. It's recycling a lot of the same things, but I do think that him speaking a couple of days before the trade deadline with everything that's been going on after not hearing from him, because he has been injured. So it's not like he's been in the locker room giving, post-game interviews or anything like that. I've never doubted his love for the city, for Milwaukee. The thing that I did learn was like his connection to the city is even deeper than I thought. Like, I knew. Here. Yeah, like I knew his kids were born here. I knew he got married here. He became a man here. He brought his family here. I did not know his father was buried here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Like, that's deep. That is deep. So it's like no matter where he goes in the world, like Milwaukee is always going to be a place where he comes back. Like his father is here. His father's body is here. So there's some heaviness with that. And the article read as just like again, love the city. I could take it as a goodbye. I could take it as I'm trying to double down and tell y'all what I really want. I want to be here. I just need the team to be competitive, which brings me to what I talked about weeks ago when this all kind of first started breaking, that this could be a possibility of him wanting out in the middle of the season, which was like a feeling of disappointment. That if he is traded mid-season, that he didn't give the Bucks even a year to try to retool this thing around him and what they have going forward. Like the year has not gone as expected for sure. But like bailing out in the middle of the season for me was kind of like, dang, like you don't give us a year? Like let's get at least a year. And I understand there's urgency because as an athlete, your career is only so long. And Giannis is probably looking in the mirror like, hey, I have maybe 5-6 more years if everything goes well, playing at a top-notch level, want to try to maximize this. There's urgency there. But yeah, it just I think I texted this to you after I read it, where I was like, it made me hopeful that he is going to stay, but also made me nervous that he's going to leave, which put me right back to where I have been for the last week, which is like in this state of just kind of anxiety of like what's going to happen next with Giannis, because he's been such a big part of the franchise. And that article with Jim, very interesting, but it's like it put me right back where I was, which is like, I need Thursday to hurry up because I need some answers immediately. But the piece that stood out to me was actually more so around ownership and how that part might not be exactly what it is. And shout out to our Everydayer Club, the Discord, because that was brought up in the Discord of like, hey, this piece stood out to me, and they highlighted it, and I was like, man, that really is something to really think about.
Yeah, I want to get to that in a second, but I don't think we heard or learned anything new really, other than what we just the deep connection personally. And he reiterated and reaffirmed and acknowledged everything, a lot of the stuff that a lot of us have mentioned too, of like, this city leaves me alone. I can walk down the street and people respect me, and I'm left alone. And the understanding that like that doesn't exist everywhere. It's not like Milwaukee is exclusive for this. I'm sure Minneapolis would say, hey, have you heard the phrase Minnesota nice? Like, you get the same thing here too. There are small markets that are going to do that. Milwaukee, especially, though, where was it Giannis that said this too? The implication of like, this city loves and respects me. Like, they leave me be, and all they ask in return is that I just bring greatness back to Milwaukee. And we've done that. And I don't mean this as like pointing fingers or blaming, because I understand the time was limited in this very, very quick Q&A session. I also wonder if we're going to see any messaging from the team of like, all future interview requests are going to have to go through us now going forward. But the one thing that was missing in all of this that I would have, this is your smoking gun, right? Is, look, it's all well and good, the TLDR to this article of like, yeah, I get it. You love it. We love you too for this, yada, yada, yada. Answer me this. If they don't trade you at the deadline, if they don't trade you over the summer, you're saying your ideal goal is you want to stay here and retire a Buck. We're going to give you an extension offer on October 1st. Are you signing it?
Yeah.
Because there's your answer.
Yeah. That's what we've been waiting for, which is part of why for me it's like, I was like, hey, maybe the summer will bring clarity. But when you realize the contract extension can't even be signed until October 1st, then it's like well, you're going to have to endure an entire summer of that.
Another training camp and another media day like we had this past time. Yeah. The ownership piece, though, and I mean, this, I got to be careful in how I choose my words, Camille, but a lot of this felt calculated. And there was one thing that was glaring that stood out. You touched on it with the ownership impact and aspect to this, and even the general manager, what Giannis had to say there. So we'll share our thoughts on that coming up. And again, the Bucks did play, and they did beat the Chicago Bulls. So we'll share some high-level thoughts on that game as well. But this, of course, the news of the day, the week, the year, and so on. So we'll get to more of Giannis's discussion with Jim Owczarski coming up next on Locked On Bucks. Well, it's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff, the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding the underdog, or building one last same-game parlay, this is the game everyone's been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to final whistle. If you're a new customer, bet $5 and get $100 in bonus bets. If you win, make it count because after the Super Bowl, the season is over. Last call for football, FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. You mentioned the Discord channel too, Camille. The trade deadline is basically here, especially yesterday with all the moves that we saw. So we want to give you a free month of our Everydayer Club to help you get ready for the deadline. We are now, 29 hours roughly away from the deadline. So if you got a group chat that you can't keep up with all the chaos that's out there, or you're searching for one, we'll give you access to ours. You can join the Discord for Bucks fans plus national chats. Come hang out with fans across the league, especially around noon until 2 o'clock tomorrow Central Time. Figures to be very busy. So you get ad-free episodes of Locked On Bucks as well when you sign up for the Everydayers Club. If you sign up by the trade deadline tomorrow, you can use the code DEADLINE and get your first month free. Tap the link in the show notes to learn more. The most interesting piece to all of it, and why I say it feels calculated, was the notion of, look, I know what my goals are, and I know what I'm playing towards. I don't know what theirs are. I don't know that we're on the same page here. And did say, we've had some conversation out of respect to them.
Yeah.
I don't feel it's appropriate to share those. But I don't know. I don't know if we're on the same page. I don't know if we have the same goals. And we can't have more of these conversations because they haven't been around, which I thought was the most obviously visible when watching the games. But okay, we're going there.
Yeah, and I had to pull the actual quote up because that part, yes. Giannis said, I know what my goal is. I don't know what their goal is. I know I like to talk to them, but I don't think that it's fair to share the conversation that I talk with them. They haven't come to the game recently. We haven't been so good. So they're probably upset. I bet you can talk to them, ask them, what's your goal? What do you want to do? They might want to reveal. They might even want to sell. They might want to do some other things. Maybe, I don't know. And Jim does add that the Journal-Sentinel did reach out to the Bucks, who said they have no comment. And with that, it made me think, is it more so like the organization is like, listen, with the assets that we currently have, it might be in our best interest now to just sell. Maybe it's best for us to just tear this down, start the rebuild, and get going, because if we drag our feet on this, if we don't do this, we probably won't get much as back as we could in the moment. There's already been articles saying the Bucks should have traded Giannis 3 years ago if you really wanted to get the Kingsman ransom for his return, which I'm not here for any revisionist history.
That's right. 3 years ago when their window is still open and they were a year or two off of winning a championship.
Right. And the person who I read who was saying that was their point of but at that point there were still no injury concerns with Giannis. But it was then why would the Bucks do it?
Camille, it's something that idiotic. Feel free to call out who it was that wrote that.
I cannot deal with that revisionist history of the Bucks haven't been good the last 3 years, so they should have been traded. No, we're not going to do that. But I do think it's interesting at this juncture now, knowing what draft assets they have, seeing where Giannis is in his career, the injuries that have been popping up. If the ownership is it could be in our best interest to just end this now. And if that is the case, they're going to have to stand for that. Lori Nichols had an article a couple weeks ago just asking we haven't heard from John Horst or anything like that as of late. And it's not as if you hear from your GMs and all that stuff often during the season, but in a season like this where there is so much noise, answers have to be we need answers. And if we get to the trade deadline and it comes out like, hey, this actually was the organization wanted to make this move, they couldn't come to the conclusion. Like, regardless of what happens, like, we have to hear from John Horst, somebody, to get a better idea of what the future of this franchise is looking like, whether Giannis is here or not, because this season has just been so much. It's been a lot, which honestly is why the game against the Bulls, seeing the Bucks actually get a win, was like they needed that. The guys on the team needed that after losing 5 straight games with all the noise around them. So yeah, I think at some point, like soon, we have to hear from them. Ownership, John Horst, somebody.
Yeah, I mean, ownership, I would say even more so, because you can make the point of like, well, you're not going to hear from John Horst right now. He's busy. Him and his staff are working on things, and you'll hear from him afterwards. I don't know that that's going to be the case, but there should be that expectation of once the deadline passes, we do need to hear from one or both parties there of what is the goal? What is the plan for this team? How are you looking to approach the summer? How are you approaching? Like, you don't have to give away the script here, but how is your approach in this Giannis situation too? Like, is the vision and the goal to still say, we want him here, we don't plan on trading him? And the reporting that we were fielding offers and everything else, that's inaccurate. Like, we want him to retire a Buck, and we're now looking into what do we have to do over the course of the summer? What are we hoping for in terms of lottery luck and everything else? And how do we continue to push this further into the direction we need it to get to? Obviously, this year didn't go as we hoped and planned, but it was a calculated step where we knew we're not going to be competing at that level. We think we're accumulating some pieces, however you want to say it. But we do need to hear from ideally both parties, but at least the ownership group, because those are the ones that are going to sign off on any move that John Horst makes, that are going to sign off on, yes, we give you the freedom to extend him that offer sheet. Or like, yes, go ahead and trade him. This is what we want to do. So I will be very disappointed if the deadline passes, and I'm not saying for Friday's game against the Pacers, but if at some point shortly thereafter, we do not hear from that group, I don't know what to make of that as a sign in any of this. Because look, the message, we don't know, to be clear, which side of this is accurate. There's only, ideally, truthfully, less than 10 people that do know that. If we're looking at Giannis, his representation, the ownership group, and John Horst, we don't know which side of this is accurate. If it is Giannis wants out, has made it clear, does not want to make it public that he wants out, and is trying to massage that as best he can. If it's the ownership group saying, we don't really want to trade you, but all right, we'll listen. If ownership is saying we're not doing any of this, so we're going to dig our heels in the sand, we know none of that. So that's why we do need to hear from the Bucks side at some point once this passes. And, there's just been a lot of noise out there. There is a very, very limited amount of people I would put any stock in quote unquote reporting coming from. When it comes to like what we're hearing from the team and from Giannis and both sides, you can count it on one hand, and you don't even need all 5 fingers to count who I would trust that's coming out there. So the more you see, I won't name names, but all these NBA accounts of like, sounds like this, like, you don't know SHI, bleed here on this. So you're re-aggregating and you're just taking stuff that's been put out there. And now I think this, and I'm hearing this. So like, I pay no attention to any of that because everything is also kind of changed day to day, where I think as we're recording this now, I thought Brian Windhorst had something too about, I think the Bucks are just considering staying put here, and that they're waiting. They don't like any of these offers that they've seen, and they think they can convince him that they can get things to go in their direction. And even stuff like, the reporting and whatnot. I don't know if we'd call it reporting, but just the thought that the Bucks are use the lottery as like, we're hoping at best we can get the number 2 pick, but we're hoping we get a really good pick. That's a budding star. We pair up with you, and this is how we start to pivot. People are like, oh, that's not really a plan, and that's having a baby to save the marriage. Like, I mean, like, hope is not a strategy. I will be the first to tell you that. But if you're telling me, what would you rather do? Would you rather use the last $100 you have? And these are the only things you can do. Use the last $100 you have to buy $100 worth of lottery tickets, or you give me that $100 and I'll give you two 20s and a 5. Which one of those do you want? Like, okay, yes, I'll take my chances with the lottery tickets.
Yeah, because it offers an opportunity that the other option doesn't, which is that's it. Like the other option is what it is, but the lottery offers the possibility of more coming. And as we've pointed out on the show, with the most recent draft class, the 2025 draft class, like you can look at Philly and see what the number 3 pick was able to do for them so far this year, to the point where early in the season, I was like, hey, with the way Edgecombe is playing next to Tyrese Maxey, like if Embiid and Paul George aren't their full selves, not saying they're a championship team, but that backcourt is good enough that they can make some noise, even if Embiid never returns to form. And as we see now, Embiid is starting to round back, not into MVP form, but looking like a player who can make an
really
impact.
Good. Yeah.
So yeah, like you take the chance with that. And if you look at what this draft class offers in 2026, like, I mean, at the top for sure, like they're saying like any other draft, the top 3 guys in this draft would go number 1, but they're all happen to be in the same draft together. And beyond that, there's just depth where you can get starters. You can get guys who are projected to immediately become starters. And yes, you can point to the draft record for the Milwaukee Bucks and be like, well, I don't trust them to do this. And honestly, I understand it. You don't want to end up like, if the Bucks do get a top 5 pick, you don't want to be Detroit in 03. You don't want to be that team that swung and missed in a loaded draft, but at least you have the opportunity to be there and try to add to your team in that way. And ultimately, like we've said before, I think there is more talent on this team, and that they can play better than what we've seen. I still believe that with the core pieces they have, I think that last night's game against the Bulls, although albeit a very beat up Bulls team, watching them play offense the way that they are been instructed to, designed to so far this season, even without some major pieces, was kind of like, okay, they got up 38 threes in this game. That's more in line of what we need to see. You can't have a Bucks team putting up 30 threes in the game. You needed to be close to that 40 mark. So there are things here. I do think for the Bucks to take that next step after this season, a coaching refresh is probably going to be needed for them to do that. But they got some pieces here. And if Giannis is dedicated to stay and figure that out with this team, I still believe Giannis is good enough to be the engine behind any team that can make a playoff run.
All right. I think we've said what we had to say about the latest, and we're both ready for Thursday at 2:05 p.m. to come. We will briefly touch on the game the Bucks won, beating the Chicago Bulls and largely playing pretty good basketball for the most part. So we'll get into that as we wrap up the show coming up after this on Locked On Bucks. Well, new year, new systems. This is the time when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run our business and think there has to be a better way. Well, there is. Streamlining your communications is one of the quickest upgrades you can make. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Q-U-O, the smarter way to run your business communications. Because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers. With Quo, your whole team can call and text from one shared business number. Nothing gets missed. Everyone sees the full conversation thread, making replies faster and more personal. And it works from your phone or computer. You can even keep your existing number. Quo's smart AI tools automatically log calls, summarize conversations, and highlight next steps so details never slip through the cracks. It's no surprise, Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses, from solo operators to growing teams. Make this the year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free, plus get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/lockedonnba. That is QUO.com/lockedonnba. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. There's nothing like being in an NBA arena. The crowd, the energy, the moments. Tickets, though, that part hasn't always been so simple. That's why Game Time has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast, without the hassle. Puts the advantage back where it belongs, with the fans. You pull up the Game Time app, pick an upcoming NBA game. You've got tickets loaded within minutes. You see the prices up front, all in. No surprise fees at checkout. You can even view the view from your seat before buying. And you got zone deals. Choosing the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save. So for great last-minute options with NBA tickets and all other events showing up at solid prices, it makes everything feel quick, intuitive, and stress-free from start to finish. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. And remember, it's gametime.co, not gametime.com. So lost in the shuffle of all this, the Bucks beat the Bulls and largely played very well in this game. What was it? 77 points that they had
at the
39 and 38 in the first two quarters. So they were on fire offensively. And it was really just like the first 5 or 6 minutes of the third quarter where it was like, oh, I knew this couldn't last. And they started to do the wrong things. Outside of that, they never lost hold of the rope, and they pushed it back to double figures and ultimately win this game by 16, where it felt like you played really well for 42 minutes of this game en route to the victory. Now, a cynic, Camille, would look at it and say, okay, no Josh Giddey. You just traded Modest Buzelis. You just traded Kevin Huerter. The Bulls had 9 players available in this game. Some of them, Lars Ulbrich, Yuki Kawamura, Dan Terry getting some more run in this one as well. Jalen Smith was featured extensively, and Isaac Okoro. So it wasn't murderer's row by any means. But to your point, look, this team had lost 5 games in a row. It's been a rough year for everyone involved and for all these guys. We didn't see Bobby Portis in this game. I mean, Doc even said before the game, he was asked, I believe by Jim, Bulls got a lot of guys out. And he quickly stopped him and said, the Bulls do? Like, we do too. Like, we got guys missing games. And said, look, they got a lot of guys out. That's true. But I also think if you told the Bulls and you told us, okay, here's the deal. We can play this current setup, or we'll give you Giannis, KPJ, Bobby. We'll give you all your guys back. We'll give the Bulls all your guys back. Which of the two do you think would prefer that more than the other?
I mean, yeah. One thing that was also interesting was hearing that Kevin Porter Jr. is close to returning. Speaking of who was missing for the Bucks, that he could play tonight against the Pelicans.
It's early as tonight, and Doc basically said, if not tonight, it'll be Friday.
Yeah, so he's coming back soon, which is good for this team. But like we said, the guys just needed to win. Like, losing wears on you. Losing breeds frustration. Plus, it's the trade deadline, all the rumors that come with that, the stress on players from that. Like, I'm anxious about the trade deadline, and I can't get traded, Justin. So I can only imagine how everybody in that locker room feels. So it has to feel good to just get that win, even if it's against a Chicago Bulls team that was shorthanded, made trades. And hearing Kobe White speak earlier vhere he was just like, I mean, losing Vooch, like, that's a big piece, and like, it's emotional and you got to go and play the game. But like, I'd be lying if I didn't say it wasn't weighing on me and the team that we just lost somebody who was so big in our locker room. So like, there's all the emotions in that game. So for the Bucks to come out, build up a 20-point lead going into halftime, you're feeling pretty good. And then to see the third quarter, I'm like, oh, it's a 6-point game. Here come the Bulls. Hearing the Bulls fans that did make the trip to Fiserv, which they always seem to do, being down the street and all. And then the Bucks responding and finding a way to put this game away. It was kind of just encouraging in the sense of like, you need that. Kyle Kuzma had a great game, aggressive from the beginning, continued to try to use his size, get to the paint. Love that from him. Ryan Rollins dishing out 10 assists in this game, in addition to getting 21 points. Like, that's what you need to see. Like, hearing Ryan after the game talk about, like, it's starting to slow down a little bit for him, where it's like, I understand, I got to kind of see the floor, and I'm seeing it a bit better. You love to hear that. Miles Turner had a pretty good game. And he's the piece where I'm like really interested in seeing how his usage continues to be when the team gets a bit more healthy, when Kevin Porter Jr. comes back, when Giannis comes back to this team as well, because we've talked about his utilization. Like, he's not just a spot up dude in the corner. Like, continue to use him in these ways that are creative. Seeing AJ Green knock down some threes, Gary Trent Jr. knock down some threes. Been a rough shooting season for him so far, so it just feels good to see that. Pete Nance continuing to show like, hey, I'm earning my minutes. Keep putting me on the court. Like, it was some things in this game where it's like you can feel good about it. Like, I know the tank command is out there where everybody wants to see the Bucks try to get the best draft position as possible, but every game's going to be a win for me, because either they win the game or they lose the game, which ultimately leads to the draft. Like, I'm not complaining either way it goes. I just want to consistently see this team play with some energy, some effort, some pride, because again, they got Milwaukee on the front of that jersey. I'm from Milwaukee, born and raised, love the city too. Like, I just want them to go out there and put together some decent competitive basketball, even if it ends up with the loss. Just go out there and hoop. And the Bucks made shots, and they played some defense too. Like, it was a pretty decent game for this group, especially given how many guys they were without.
Yeah, look, I get the tank commanders and what they're looking for here. As we talked about in the past, I don't know how much lower the Bucks can go than they are in the standings, so that's kind of the caveat with it as well. Is look at what Memphis did. You have an identical record to Memphis right now. Memphis is going to drop lower than you in the standings. I can all but guarantee that. You're currently in front of Memphis in terms of a worse record. So I would be stunned if Memphis doesn't finish the season with a worse record than you. Dallas is kind of hovering around you. Charlotte is hovering around you. Portland is hovering around you as well, as these are teams that have more wins than you, but you're matched in losses. So I think that's the danger too of we're playing for getting a high lottery pick. Is we want to win in the lottery, but not win, too much. We're walking away from a good pick and taking a so pick. There is no scenario where the Bucks are going to bottom out all the way into like a bottom 3 spot in this lottery. And frankly, they can't really do that either. The interesting part is this game tonight against New Orleans, because right now the Pelicans have the second worst record in the league. But I wonder about that. They, as we well know, do not get a draft pick this summer. Mm-hmm. What is the incentive to be really bad? And I'm not saying the Pelicans are trying to be bad. Sometimes your personnel dictates what you are, but the Pelicans are going to be trying to win. They have no incentive to we're just resting Zion and we're just doing this and we're resting these guys. So they're going to try to win down the stretch. And there's a lot of teams that are not. So New Orleans is going to start to back into some of these wins. So I think it's far more likely that the Bucks finish somewhere around the 7th or 8th worst record in the league, and New Orleans might get all the way up to 5th or 6th in that front. So in the meantime, just continuing to have these types of moments and just finding situations, game situations and types and what works where you can develop guys. Ryan Rollins, you talked about how he played. I thought he had some shaky moments where you still get to the point where Ryan Rollins, it feels like, is taking on too much and trying to do too much. I think a product of that is the injuries and guys that are not on the floor. But largely, he played a good game. Jericho Sims played a pretty good game too, and the connection with Ryan that you see, okay, here's how we can use him. Andre Jackson Jr. came and moved the ball well, had some 3 really nice finds for assists. So these types of things. Most importantly, Gary Trent Jr. and AJ Green. I thought the most important part to the game itself, AJ took 4 threes in the opening quarter, and that duo went a combined 10 of 17 on their threes. We heard from Kuz, we talked about it. We got to take more threes. It's not just that. I think those are the guys. Even though Gary Trent Jr. has kind of struggled shooting the ball, those are still the 2 guys I want to get the most looks for 3. So let's continue to do that here in the short term. And just the danger with all of this is as cliche as it is to say, like, you just have to build good habits because it gets pretty dangerous when you just start playing to lose and tanking and young guys, and that's what you're developing and instilling in them. Even with veterans on the team like Miles and Bobby and Cole Anthony and Giannis around, you just don't want to start to go down that path because it's tough to crawl out of that hole once you get there.
It is. It is. And they have an interesting matchup, as you said, against a Pelicans team that has no incentive to lose because they don't get anything out of it. Like, I watched that Pelicans Hornets game on Monday, and watched they went ice cold in the second quarter. And they're prone to do that. They are not a great 3-point shooting team. They don't do much well outside of scoring in the paint and getting out in the fast break. They do rebound offensively pretty well, which, as we know, can be an area of weakness for the Bucks. But I am curious to see how the Bucks look. Second night of back-to-back, legs can be tired, so on and so forth. But, like, what's the energy that they're going to come out with at home? We've talked about the Bucks' record at home as well, not being good enough, and a season that overall has not been good enough. So I'm just curious to see what the energy looks like for them coming out. Second night of back-to-back against a Pelicans team that, if we talked to this team early in the season, after hearing how they talked about teams like Brooklyn, of saying, like, how are we losing to this team? Like, here's another one of these teams that theoretically on paper you should look at and be like, hey, we got a chance to run with them, compete with them. So let's see what it looks like. And ultimately, here to see if we get the KPJ return in this game or on Friday, because the Bucks desperately missed having his shot creation and another ball handler out there on the court as well.
All right, the Bucks and the Pelicans tonight, the tank off, the pick game, however you want to refer to it, and then the Pacers. So we'll see one of these two games. Again, the strong indication is it's going to be the return of Kevin Porter Jr., and of course, we'll see what else develops on the Giannis front. All the other trades too. The James Harden trade happened. We saw Nikola Vucevic moved on as well. The Timberwolves creating some financial flexibility that everybody is worrying about. So I would imagine today is going to be just as nuts, and Thursday as well. So we'll be with you with the latest all through this week in the Discord, and then anything that warrants, we're going to have the instant live reaction to on this show on YouTube and the podcast as well. So stay tuned for that. If you don't already follow, make sure you do that so you get the notification as soon as we go live with the latest and the recap of the trade deadline. Even if the Bucks don't make any moves of significance, there's going to be some things to discuss that I would assume we will be going live and sharing our thoughts in the Discord as well as the deadline comes to a close. Thanks for tuning in today to Locked On Bucks. Again, tomorrow we're going to recap another game, the Pelicans, and we'll see the latest on the trade front. So make sure you've subscribed and to follow the show for the latest episodes. If you never miss an episode, we mentioned before, the Everydayer Club is built for you. You get Locked On Bucks ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. You can find the link to sign up for the Everydayer Club in the show notes of today's episode. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 national NBA YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make your second listen, NBA Game Nights on Locked On NBA. For Camille, I'm Justin. We will talk with you guys once again tomorrow on Locked On Bucks.